Viscose. It's one of my favorite things to wear. It's one of my favorite things to work with. It's so silky, it's so shiny, it's so soft, and it's such a pain in the butt when it comes to winding it in preparation for a project. There's no other good way to put it. Today, I am going to be showing you guys a technique I came up with a while back that I have very successfully been using when winding slippery yarns for myself and folks in the shop at Grandma's Spinning Wheel to make things like viscose and silks and rayons and other lovely warm weather appropriate slippery yarns far easier to work with when you're getting ready to do a project with them. Hey there, yarn crazies. Welcome to episode 14 of I Heart Yarn. I had originally planned for this episode to be a review of Wool Pop from Universal, but well, life. So instead, you're getting a bit of a tips and tricks episode today where I'm talking about handling a viscose or silk or rayon or other slippery, what we call slimy yarns at Grandma's, things that are very difficult to wind and tend to devolve on you when you're working on a project. If you're not familiar with viscose, viscose is really great for summertime items, warm weather items. Here it is. When I'm filming this, it is April 10th, and it is already going to be 90 degrees here in southern Arizona. Yes, the beginning of April, the day after Easter, and it is going to be 90 degrees already. As you can imagine, wool and wool blends are generally not a real big part of my life or part of my hand knit or hand crocheted wardrobe, considering the climate that I live in. So I am far more frequently working with mercerized cottons, silks, or viscose. Yes, truly one of my favorite things to work with. Viscose is a plant-based rayon or silk substitute, and sometimes it is by itself or it is blended with cotton or other items. But regardless of whether it is by itself or blended with something else, it is shiny, it has lots of drape, it's very soft and slippery against the skin. It's fantastic to wear in the warm weather. Unfortunately, it is also, as I said in the intro, a total pain in the butt when it comes time to winding for a project. And even if you can successfully get a ball off of the winder in good condition, it tends to devolve on you very quickly, or it really can. Here's a skein of sugarcane, which I'm working with right now. This is a 100% viscose yarn from Suculo out of Brazil. Yes, I will, as soon as I'm finished with the project that I'm starting with this right now, I'll be doing a full review on this one for you guys as well. But look at this. Look at the drape, look at the swing, look at the shine, and it is luxuriantly soft. There's a reason why so many people who live in warm climates are so fond of viscose for garments. But how do you keep it under control? How do you keep it from doing this? Yeah, the balls just kind of fall apart. Why does this happen? When you're winding unmercerized cottons, when you're winding wools, when you're winding acrylic yarns even that aren't super slippery, because of the fiber content and the way it is made, there's a little bit of friction there in between the strands. That allows you to, when you wind up a ball of yarn into a cake or a hand wound ball, it gives it structure. That friction gives the strands something to adhere to. They get to adhere to and hold on to each other a little bit. That gives that cake or that ball some structure. When you're working with something like a really smooth cotton, really smooth mercerized cotton, a nice silk, or a viscose or viscose blend, the slip that makes it so nice to wear is what makes it hard to keep it in a nice little ball. I don't know where this crazy brain came up with this concept a while back, but I have figured out how to make balls of viscose or silk or other slippery things behave using dun da da. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the lowly paper towel. I know sometimes people look at me a little crazy because I already keep dental floss in my project bags because that's what I prefer to lifeline with. Now I'm bringing a paper towel. Yeah. I normally try to minimize my use of disposable objects, but this is something that sacrificing 1 or 2 sheets of paper towel, which you can reuse later, can really help you out when you're working with something slippery. Right now, I'm going to go to some hands-on videos showing you guys what happens when you're winding a viscose without any structural assistance, and how I cut this up and integrate it into balls to make viscose far more pleasant to work with. So here we are getting started, and things start out looking okay, and you're thinking, wow, this is going to be no problem. And you're just happily winding along, and the skein's coming off the Swift, and then you hit about that 10% mark. And that's when you start to feel it. You start to feel that slip, and you start to see those dreaded loops appearing down at the bottom of the ball. I'm going to pause here in a second, and you're going to see them. Keep going, keep going. The slipping is starting to continue. And sure enough, there they are. There's the dreaded little loops. Now I'm going to fast forward through a good chunk of the winding of the rest of this cake. And while I'm doing that, I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, okay, why not just hand wind balls instead of turning into a cake? Well, besides being able to use my yarn butler, and flat-sided cakes tend not to roll away the way balls do, I've tried hand winding slippery things into balls, and unless you wind them so tight they're damaging the yarn, they tend to disintegrate anyway. Look, yep, there it is. It continued to happen as you were winding, thinking it wouldn't. And then when you try and take it off, oh, ick, what a mess, right? Really? You're gonna try and work with this? No. Now, let's take a look at how I cut paper towel sheets to help eliminate this problem. Fold the paper towel on your surface lengthwise, press it down, bring the ends together, press that down, and fold that into thirds. Nice tight little bundle. Now grab your scissors and cut along the folds. Doesn't have to be super precise, just cut those folds. Do it from both sides. Now we're going to take those, fan it open a little, and we're going to cut the folds that are along the top edge here. Again, doesn't have to be super precise. But this leaves you with a nice little collection, nice little pile of these beautiful little rectangular sheets that are just a little bit longer than the height of the cake that comes off of your average ball winder that most of us have at home. Now let's try this again. Loading up, have our little pieces ready to go, and let's get started. Winding, winding, winding. I don't have a fixed pattern for this. Mostly I just want to put them in every so often so that there is something for the yarn to grab onto. Whether you count the number of revolutions of the handle or a number of seconds, or if you do what I've been doing for the most part, and once about 90% of the piece of paper towel is no longer visible, that's about the time it's time to start putting in another one. And there have been times when I have noticed that the yarn lets me know that, hey, you need to put these in a little more often than you're doing now, because you will occasionally get some loops that they start to slip and slide off of the cake, and you might find yourself having to stop, kind of pull some of that, slack or some of those icky bits back out and go again. You'll notice that the paper towel pieces, some of them, they aren't 100% lined up with the cake. That doesn't really seem to matter very much. It's mostly about whether or not the vast majority of that piece of paper towel is in contact with the side wall of the cake that you were building. And just keep going round and round, and every so often put in as many little pieces of paper towel as you need to give this thing some structure and something to grab onto. We'll fast forward through the rest of this ball here, and I think you're really gonna like what you're seeing when I pull it off when it's done. Here we go, very close to done here. Last one. Whee. Sorry, I love using my hand winder. It's a great tool. Here's the end. Now, before we pull it off, I like to take the ball band. Fold that up a little bit and stick that down in the well in between. We do it at the shop too. That way people know where to find their ball band. Look, no big, giant, icky loopies hanging off. So much more stable, so much easier to use. Hooray! Yes, I know. Strange looking balls that have little bits of white sticking out of them, but quite frankly, I'd rather look at a cake of yarn that has little bits of paper sticking out of it rather than argue and scream and throw a tantrum, which honestly I have to admit has happened in the past when I've had a cake of something I was working with disintegrate on me and then I had to spend time sitting there detangling my yarn instead of working with my yarn. Just because this has been cut up into little pieces and used that way doesn't mean that you have to throw it away. There is no reason why you can't reuse these. These have actually come out, this little pile has come out of my first ball of sugarcane that I wound up and am working on the front panel of a top with. At this point, I am probably going to be keeping a small, like snack size Ziploc baggie in my primary project, and craft bag I carry around with these in there so that when it comes time for me to wind something slippery, I have these ready and available. There's no reason why these can't be used over and over and over again. These are getting ready to go for their second round. I hope you find this really helpful. If you're someone that you have worked with a slippery or slimy yarn in the past, it made you crazy and you swore never, ever, ever again, simply because trying to manage the yarn was a nightmare. I hope this makes you willing to kind of give those contents another try. Thanks for sticking with me today. I really hope you found this helpful. If you know someone else who you think this would find this helpful, can't talk today, please send it on to them. See if you can help them out with some of their yarn issues as well. If you enjoyed this tip or this trick, please go check out some of my other videos and hit the subscribe and notifications bells down below so that you can find out when I post more either reviews or tips and tricks in the future. Thanks for joining me. Go out and make something that makes you happy, and I'll see you next time.